Alrighty, the Facade, Chapter 4. Unthinking faith is a curious offering to be made to the creator of the human mind. John A. Hutchinson. Dr. Banstra, the secretary's voice echoed over the intercom. Yes, the seated figure answered with a sigh, making no effort to divert his gaze from the window behind his desk. The colonel is here, sir. Send him in, and hold the rest of my calls until he leaves. Yes, sir. The office door swung open, and the rugged Air Force officer entered quietly and removed his hat. Though just having entered his 60s, Colonel Vernon Ferguson conveyed the energy and vigor of a man half his age. His sparkling, penetrating eyes accentuated the fading blonde hair left atop his whitened scalp. The man behind the desk didn't move, his gaze still fixed on the Washington panorama. Good morning, Neil, the officer greeted energetically, standing erect in his dress blues, awaiting visual recognition. There was no response. A few seconds elapsed before Neil Banster broke his gaze at the clouds. He hadn't been looking at anything in particular. As he turned to face his highly decorated caller, his drawn face betrayed a tired, distracted owner. The colonel couldn't manage to completely conceal his surprise. When's the last time you had some sleep? The colonel asked as he seated himself. A day or so ago. You really need to get some rest. We have a lot of work to do. Yes, we certainly do. Still thinking about the tour, eh? You know you're not atypical, Neil. I did the same thing. I've seen people who've spent their whole lives spinning lies to cover up something they'd only been told about just crumble when they finally witness the truth, just as you did. But I know you're different. Neil stared uncertainly at the soldier from behind his desk. Compared to the alert and dapper colonel, he was a wreck, tie and collar undone, his suit coat thrown across the chair next to the officer's. The paperwork on his desk, awaiting his attention, remained untouched in the same pile from the evening before. He was physically and emotionally fatigued. I'm still a little curious why you even wanted to risk exposing me to all this. After all, you and I haven't exactly seen eye to eye in the past. I not only knew you could take the exposure, but I also needed someone within official channels who I can trust. You're one of the few people I know who isn't interested in kissing my ass or anyone else's. It'll be refreshing and essential to have someone on the project that will provide blunt, honest evaluations. As for your current preoccupation, you'll be just fine. The group never okays anyone if there's even the slightest doubt. Thanks, Neil managed with a weak smile. It's not often your whole view of life changes overnight. I've been doing a lot of thinking. No doubt. But when it really sinks in, you'll begin to imagine the incredible possibilities and the threat to the nation's stability, to our whole way of life. Really? He interrupted, leaning back in his chair. The officer paused awkwardly and the room fell silent. I do have good news for you, the colonel resumed after a few moments. Your request has been honored and secured. Thanks so much, Vernon, Banster said gratefully with obvious relief, his countenance lightening. Glad I could help. The group had no problems with what I wanted? Interestingly enough, no. I've been with them for 20 years, and they usually chaff a little bit at adding to a project personnel they haven't handpicked. But in this case, it only took a week or so to get it approved. I didn't even get quizzed on the addition. I think they realize that after all this time, they know I don't pick people whose judgment can't be relied on. I have to admit, though, I'm a bit curious at the choice from your perspective. There's no doubt that someone in this area is absolutely critical, but you could certainly have asked for someone with much more stature. Once you hear what he has to say, you'll know why I wanted him. In my mind, he's the best person we could get for this, and he can be trusted. For sure, he won't know what hit him, but he'll adjust. He won't have any choice, the colonel reminded him. I know you don't like the idea, but we're going to have to dump the truth on them right away. We've profiled all of them psychologically. They should be able to handle it, Neil replied. He wasn't so sure about himself, much less people he hadn't met yet. I hope I'm not the best case scenario. Like I said, your response is perfectly normal. We profiled you too, remember? We're confident all of them will be able to handle the truth. Right, Neil said softly, tapping his desk with his fingers. The truth. The colonel got up from his seat and took a step toward the door. The president is holding up his end of the plan. He's scheduled to make even more trips to raise awareness regarding regulation of agriculture, but he doesn't know why he's doing it yet. The group hasn't decided on when he'll be informed. You're our highest contact within official government channels. You answer to no one but me. Understood. I'll let you know when the decision has been made. We can't risk national security in the hands of the commander-in-chief. The colonel sighed and looked at the floor momentarily. I know how it sounds, but we work this way all the time, and we know it's necessary. I know he's a personal friend, and I promise you, Neil, he'll be brought up to speed when it's time. The group won't ignore him. In fact, they believe his popularity in the polls will work to their advantage. They just need to ensure that they'll retain control after full disclosure. This has to stay in the hands of people who know what they're doing, not people who need to get reelected. And above all else, the colonel said in a low voice as he reached for the knob, Central Intelligence and the Joint Chiefs must be kept completely out of the loop. We can't take any chances. I know. All right. There you go. Ooh, it's after 11. Right after 11. Oh.